All right, here goes nothing. So this is webinar number 1 for my junior webinar series. This is going to be the first one starting January 1st, or starting the first month of the year. Plan moving forward is do one every single month. It should be out within the first couple weeks of each month. So by the end of the year, we'll have 12 of these done. So later down the road, we can go back and see how rusty this one turned out to be. Anyways, topic for this one is going to be how to get the most out of your off season. It's going to be specifically geared towards junior off season training, primarily for golf. However, this can also be geared toward just about any junior athlete who has any hopes or aspirations of becoming a college athlete. So a little bit about myself first. My name is Tyler Johnson. I actually joined Par for Success in May of 2019. Goodness, already 2020. Yikes. Anyways, I'm a certified strength conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and I have a very extensive background in college strength and conditioning. My bachelor's degree was completed in exercise science at North Dakota State University, and I graduated there in the spring of 2017. And then I received my master's in kinesiology from Georgia Southern. That was in the summer of 2018. So from there, I was an assistant strength conditioning coach at Georgia Southern University for almost about 8 months before I decided to pack up, move to Raleigh, and find my position here. But beyond that, I have, like I said, an extensive experience with college strength and conditioning programs, and I feel like I bring a lot of that to the table here at Par for Success, and it's very beneficial knowledge to have, especially in a podcast with this kind of topic. So moving forward, like I mentioned, the main goal of this webinar is to reach out to junior athletes who have aspirations or hopes of becoming a college athlete. And I guess thinking about your performance, a performance program is meant to prepare you for college athletics. And obviously, in the recruiting process, typically what matters the most is your performance and how well you can perform in front of coaches and college programs. But being able to perform ultimately comes down to how can you train to perform. And if you don't know that what you're doing is working, then it's really kind of like a shot in the dark as far as how you're going to perform once you do get in front of college coaches. So off season is that's the greatest area. That's the greatest opportunity that you have to get better and to enhance your performance and to really be able to prepare yourself for when you do need to perform in front of college coaches. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the off-season training here. Typically, people lose track of off-season. They think that just because their season is done, they're not playing as much, it's okay to take rest and it's okay to take a break. But ultimately, the goal of the off-season is actually to kind of break down just a little bit. So the training that you do in your off-season prepares you for the season. So think of a season, how durable you need to be and how long a season can be. Well, the off season is what prepares you for that. So this fitness and fatigue model just kind of gives you an idea of during the off season, you're actually stressing your body a lot, quite a bit actually. And that's why not very many people like off season training, because it's hard and it's difficult and it takes a lot out of you. But ultimately what you're doing is you're stressing your body to a point where it's overwhelmed, to the point where it's forced to adapt and it's forced to recover. And the idea with that being that you peak or you periodize at the right time, so that way adaptation and recovery happens to set you up for the beginning of that season and allows you to be the most durable that you possibly can during your in-season time. A lot of people, when they get into the off season, have really no idea where to start. And like I mentioned, shooting in the dark earlier, if you don't have data or you don't have results to drive your program, your off season program, then it can be very difficult. And that's where the first place to begin is assessment. So you really need to look at yourself and figure out where are you balanced? Where are you imbalanced? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where can you improve the most? And I have up there 35% of all injuries in golf are related to low back injuries. Um, Primarily, what this comes from is failure to prepare. So if you don't know that you're not strong enough in the posterior chain, or your internal hip rotation or trunk rotation is not enough, then yeah, that's gonna happen. And the only way to know is to assess yourself at the beginning of the off season and allow your strength coach or your strength conditioning professional to take care of that for you and provide you the program that's best going to fit you and set you up to be successful when the season does come around. So talking about assessment, like I mentioned, the first thing you want to look at is injury. So coming off of an in season, you want to ask, hey, what kind of injuries are lurking around, or what did I carry with me into the off season here? Or what was I pushing through just to get to the end of the in season? And then once that's taken care of, once you've seen your PT and they've kind of helped assess you there, the next question is, all right, where am I deficient in? Where am I deficient? And what do I need to do the most to allow myself the best opportunity to become as successful as possible? And typically, this is where the handoff comes from the PT to myself, the strength coach, and looking at that, where you can get the best at. You primarily look in three different categories: your mobility, how well are you able to move; your strength, what kind of strength gains can we make; and then your power, how fast and explosive can we make you. And one area you might be extremely well, you might rank very high in, and one area you might not so much. And it's kind of like a chain. These three need to be chained together. And if there's a kink in the chain, or if there's a misconnection, then there can be a lot of potential problems in the next upcoming in season. After that, then kind of talk about controllables. So once you're into the off season, you've figured out or you've understood what the areas are that you can progress the most in. It's then turn to ask yourself, what can I do to allow myself to be the most successful once this off season is finished and the next in season comes around? So you need to become stronger. Hey, now what is in your control to make you stronger? And I've narrowed this down to 5 categories that you can think of where you can remain control under. And that's your rehab. We talked about assessing injuries first, your training, we just talked about that on the previous slide, and then 3 other ones: your nutrition, which we'll talk about in a little bit, your recovery, and your sleep, which kind of goes hand in hand with nutrition, and then practice. So a question to be asked about each one of these are you doing what's necessary for your recovery from an injury? So if you went and saw a PT at the end of the season and you knew you had that lurking injury and you've now nailed it down and figured out what it needs to be, it's your responsibility to put in the appropriate work to make that better, or to fix that, so that way it doesn't come back around. And then when you start talking about training is all about commitment, and we're going to get into that just a little bit. And then nutrition, recovery, and sleep. Ultimately, it just comes down to what kind of decisions are you making as far as what are you putting into your body, how many hours of sleep are you allowing yourself, and then how much are you taking the initiative to keep practicing and staying consistent with your swing. So first thing I'll talk about is rehab. As I mentioned, you have to know what you need to be doing to rehab an injury and get better and be able to come back. Once you do know, then it is all up to you to follow through on that. So thinking about an injury right now as a junior golfer or a junior athlete, this injury right now, if it doesn't get nipped in the bud and it doesn't get taken care of, this can set you back so much. This could keep you from receiving an athletic scholarship. And I have on there, the long-term consequences are not worth it unless you're 100% educated on the risks involved with training through an injury. If you think that an injury is just going to get better on someone and you can train through it or you can play through it, you need to think again. You really need to take care of your rehab and your injury assessment first before you can move on to anything else. From there, we can talk a little bit about training. So this is all, like I mentioned, it's all about commitment. And there's a lot of things that I can mention to you or that you can read in a book or that you can talk to your strength and conditioning professional or your PT professional and they can tell you, but ultimately what it comes down to is you have to be committed to training. A lot of people don't like it, and as I showed on one of the first slides, it's very stressful, it's very hard, and it's very difficult, but you have to understand that this is something that cannot be ignored. You can't rely on talent and skill to get you to where you wanna be, and I guess my biggest takeaway that I'd like for you to understand in training is that you have to build a routine. If you're just gonna get by day with training, you're not going to get very far. You have to build a routine and you have to hold yourself accountable to it. So, my 4 steps into building your routine is one, make training a priority. So, understand that training isn't a option, it is a must. If you want to get better and you want to be successful, you must make training a priority. And then, as I just mentioned, you have to schedule out the long term. You can't just say, oh, I think I'll go work out tomorrow. The day after that, I'm not sure. You have to understand that if you want to get better, you have to map it out. You have to play it out. And that fit versus fatigue graph that I showed earlier, that really kind of shows that if you don't plan that out, then once again, you're just shooting in the dark. And then the third one is prepare for accommodation. So if we're just getting off a Christmas break right now, if you were gone for 2 weeks on Christmas break, whether you took a family vacation or anything else you were traveling, you need to be able to stay committed to training by knowing that, hey, I'm going to be on a family vacation and I'm only going to have access to a hotel fitness center. So I need to talk to my strength coach and figure out what he can advise for me to be doing with this limited amount of equipment. And then the last one is finding a workout partner. So some people can find it really easily to remain self accountable. However, not very many people can. That's very, very difficult and that's very, very tricky. And the best way to go about that or the best way to solve that is to ultimately find somebody who has similar goals or aspirations as you and go through all 4 of these steps and processes together. And then as you're going through your training, you really have to ask yourself why questions. If you don't understand why you're doing a certain exercise or you don't understand why you're doing a specific amount of reps, you need to be asking those questions because if you don't know why, you're not going to be bought in. And then tracking your progress. We talked about that with the assessment. If you don't see improvement or if there's no way for you to physically tangibly see that you're improving, once again you're just shooting in the dark and you're setting yourself up for failure later on once you get back into the in season. Now we're going to start talking a little bit more into detail on the later 3. This first one is nutrition, and like I mentioned, ultimately what this comes down to is making appropriate decisions. So the first thing you have to ask is, what are you putting into your body? And when this topic comes up, the first thing that you should be thinking about is your hydration. So way too many of the times, among junior golfers and even beyond that, just athletes in general push themselves to not being hydrated enough, and this is something that's so easy to take care of. I remember when I was in high school, my high school strength coach told me to carry around a smart water bottle every single day, and if I'm not filling it up 5 times a day, then I'm doing something wrong. And this is something that, yes, this is important during off-season training, but also this is important just all around, even in season. And I really find that this chart on here is very, very resourceful in being able to understand and answer your why question. Why do I need to stay hydrated? What does it look like being hydrated? Moving on through that, I guess you can kind of tie the next 3 all together: energy management, eating on the road, and supplements. So when it comes to energy management, you cannot rely on eating breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning and then going the entire day without lunch or a snack and expect to come to the gym at 3:30 in the afternoon and be able to perform optimally. Yes, you might be able to get by, you might be able to creep by, but we talked about injury. That is when injury is most likely to occur. And this is something where, once again, you have to make the decision. If I am skipping meals, I need to go back and I need to figure out why I'm skipping those meals and what I can do differently. If that means packing lunches, packing snacks, asking your parents or making your own dinner or making your own meals the day ahead of time, then that's what you need to be doing to make sure that this gets taken care of. And going along with that is eating on the road. You can't expect to go on the road and to have a 3-day weekend of eating Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, getting ice cream, or drinking sugary coffee drinks to be okay, and then come back on day number 4 and be like, "Oh, all right, like I'm back to it." Ultimately, eating has to be something consistent, and eating on the road is where it faults possibly the most. And then lastly is I like to talk a little bit about supplements, and you can read what I have to say on here, but I guess it's more important what I'm about to say right now is that if you cannot buy it in a grocery store, you should not be putting it in your body. And that's just something that during high school, it's not as much of an issue, but once you get into the NCAA and you get into college athletics and you're being issued drug tests regularly, all it takes is to make one poor decision or to make one uneducated decision on purchasing a supplement and taking it for a small amount of time for you to take a big step back in your athletic development. And with this, I also want to piggyback on there. You need to consider water and hydration as a supplement. And it's not just a here nor there topic. Water and hydration is also considered a supplement, and you need to be putting that in your body regularly. Next, kind of just piggybacking off of nutrition will be recovery and sleep. So I understand you're all high school athletes. I've been there before. Everybody's been there before. A full day of school, homework, training, practice, it adds up, and there's only so many hours in a week. However, this sleep and recovery is something that you cannot ignore. Just like hydration is something that you cannot ignore, sleep and recovery is also. And here's a really good chart that you can use as a resource as well. Just looking at sleep and recovery ultimately comes down to the chance of injury. So if you're not sleeping enough, there's a big, big, big risk in the possibility of injury. You can see it here. It's pretty significant. And if you're sleep deprived regularly, your performance is going to be suboptimal. Not only is your performance going to be not great, but like I said, there's that chance of injury, and it's just not worth risking. And then moving forward is practice. So this, I want to tie in college athletics as much as I can on this, because right now you're probably in high school and you're being told by your parents, you're being told by your coaches, you're being told by just about everybody that you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, you need to be doing this, you need to be here, you need to be there. What you need to do right now is find what's right for you and be consistent in your practice, because once you do make it into college and once you do become a college athlete, there's nobody there like they are now to be telling you where to be, what to be doing, how to be doing it. During the in-season, college athletes are allowed 20 hours of hands-on coaching and practice time. And I know I have it on there as during the off-season. That's a typo. During the in-season, you're allowed 20 hours. During the off-season, you're only allowed 8. Think about how many hours are in a week. You're only allowed 8 hours to be in front of a coach and be gathering instruction from them. And now you can take away anywhere from 3 to 4 hours of that, of your strength and conditioning time. Because during the off season, we talk about training is so important. Yeah, and college coaches understand that. That's why they give 3 to 4, 50% of their off season hours to their strength coach. But then that only leaves them with 4 hours with you. So the rest of that time needs to be spent on your own, and you need to find a way to get yourself in a routine and find what works for you to be the most consistent in practice. And the way to do that is to start doing it now. If you can do that right now, I guarantee you will be one huge step ahead of a very, very large amount of college freshmen that are just beginning their college athletic career right now. Now, as I just mentioned in the previous slide, consistency is key. So, as talking about in season, off season, as you start spending less time out on the golf course and you start spending less time practicing, your time in the gym must go up. And that's like we just talked about the amount of hours in a week. That's a really good example. If you consider, say, right now, you're spending a total of 10 hours every single week in combined practice and training. Now, when the weather's better, when the weather's a little bit more nice, you might be spending 8 of those hours outside practicing or playing and only 2 of them training. That's fine. Hey, if that's what you need to do to get in a routine and build a consistent schedule, then that's fine. But once the weather starts getting poor and you can't get out onto the course as much as you can, as much as could when the weather was better, then say now instead of practicing 8 hours a week, you're only practicing for 4 hours a week. So guess what? You just lost 4 hours. You need to take that 4 hours in and put it back into training. Okay. So you really need to be able to manage that and block off and create a consistent routine right now to where you're either practicing or you're training, because that is what's going to set you up best in the future. And this is just a statistic that I found in one of Chris's articles, actually, and it's 95% of junior golfers won't even play in college. And if you want to be the 5%, you need to really, really, really take consistency and make it a priority. Consistency and dedication are what's going to get you there. That is as simple and as straightforward as it can be. Now, this is just kind of piggybacking off that previous slide, the 5%. So think about where you're at right now and what your goals are. Before you even saw these numbers or before you even saw the previous slide's numbers, what were your goals? If you wanted to be a Division I golfer, then take a look right there. Men, only 2%. Only 2% of the golfers that come out of high school make it. And for women, it's 2.8%. Now, that's Division I. And obviously, as you go down, the chances get a little bit better. But at the end of the day, 6% of men and 6.8% of women make it into the NCAA coming out of high school as a college golfer. Now, that's not a lot, but that is a number that you need to look at very blunt. You need to look at that and be like, all right, like that number does not change. There is no way of beating around it. If you're not the 6%, then it's either a yes or a no game. And you need to make the right decisions now. And hopefully what you're gathering from this presentation is helping give you an idea what that needs to be. And I just kind of thought this was really cool because people now, with social media growing as much as it is, a lot of people, especially young people, reach out to social media as a big resource of their development. And this is something that I kind of found on Instagram, actually, and that's Brooks Koepka. I mean, I'm sure everybody is familiar with Brooks Koepka. Now, Brooks Koepka is best well known because of his strength and conditioning programs, because of his physical fitness. And with that, this is just something that I found on Instagram. It just goes to show he added 2 miles per hour of club head speed in an off season. Now, for him being as top level and elite of a golfer as he is, that is pretty significant. For him to add 2 miles an hour in an off season, that's very significant because he's already reached almost a pinnacle of playing. That's very good. So that's just something that junior golfers need to understand, that if professionals are still able to make themselves better by getting into a gym and training during the off season, then it's something that you really need to understand now and take action on. And there's many correlations that exist between the amount of muscular strength and skill that you have in the weight room and in your physical fitness with your driving distance, your swing speed, your ball speed, and muscle strength, all tying it in together. So ultimately, if you want to become a better golfer and if you want to hit the ball further and if you want to be in better shape during a round, you need to be consistent. Make that choice to dedicate yourself to the off season to prepare you to be successful during that in season. Now, obviously, I understand this is gonna get sent out as a replay or a recording, but if anybody has any questions, please, please, please feel free to email me. I'm always available 100% of the time through email. I love being able to answer questions, and I absolutely love being a part of junior development. One of the reasons why I got out of college athletics and brought myself here to work with junior golfers was because I have seen what it's like being a college athlete. I have seen far too many 18-year-olds make their way into college athletics and not be prepared. I have seen what a college strength and conditioning program looks like, and I can tell you right now, depending on which school you go to, I could probably tell you exactly what your training program is gonna look like, and I want to do everything that I possibly can to set juniors up for success, whether you be a golfer or not. I want you to be able to have success as an athlete, and I want you to be able to have a healthy, long, and durable future as an athlete, and um, thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Like I mentioned, it's number one. Um, it's gonna be pretty rough. It's gonna be pretty rusty, but I hope you enjoyed it. Keep your eyes out each month for a new one of these, and hopefully, as I keep going along, I keep getting a little bit better. And like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, or if you have any topics that you'd like to hear or see me talk about or discuss, please feel free to reach out as well. I'm open to feedback all around. So, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed.